Greetings again everyone, and today I'm checking out a pretty interesting new autofocus lens from Yongnuo, their 56mm f1.4 SDA DSM WL Pro. It's initially coming out just for Sony E-mount mirrorless cameras. Its cost will only be $270, so for a lens of this kind, that's potentially quite the bargain. Well, if it's any good, of course, and I'd like to thank Yongnuo for sending me one of these for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. It offers only an APS-C image circle. Here's what your image will look like on a full frame camera if you don't shoot in crop mode. And so, on APS-C, this lens is the full frame equivalent of about 85mm, which is a slightly tight focal length, ideal for subject or event photography. And, with its very bright maximum aperture of f1.4, it'll be great for shooting in darker situations and for getting very out of focus backgrounds in your images. The design of the lens itself is quite good looking here, and its build quality is very nice and metallic. At about 370 grams, over 3/4 of a pound, it does have a bit of weight to it though, and it's not small either. It's a metallic lens based on a metal lens mount with a weather sealing gasket and a USB-C port around the side with a rubber cover for future firmware updates. Then we get some controls, a customizable function button and an auto manual focus switch, which can also be set to turn a wireless remote control on and off. As I mentioned, the lens can be bought with an extra remote control, which allows you to adjust focus remotely, A to B focusing, and adjusting focus speed, and apparently starting and stopping video recording. Interesting. Not something I need at all, but some video makers doing unusual projects may be interested. Then comes the aperture ring. A switch around the side of the lens enables you to set it to turn smoothly for video work or with nice positive clicks for still photography, a choice which I love to have. Then comes the manual focus ring, which is also metallic and turns very smoothly. The lens's manual focus response is quite smooth here, quite responsive. As you can also see, the lens suffers from a small amount of focus breathing as you focus in and out, but it's nothing serious. The lens's autofocus motor is quiet and accurate. In single shot autofocus mode it works a little slowly, as you can see. However, set your camera to continuous autofocus mode and it suddenly becomes pretty fast. The lens has a 58mm filter size and comes with a fairly deep plastic hood. It does not feature image stabilization, although the internal stabilization of my Sony camera worked perfectly with it. All in all, the lens's build quality feels very nice and its electronics work absolutely fine as well. So let's look at image quality. I'll be testing it today on a 24MP Sony APS-C camera. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. Okay, at f1.4, sharpness is quite good. Contrast is okay, but we do see a little purple fringing on contrasting edges. Stop down to f2 though, and the lens becomes razor sharp in the middle of your images. Alright, let's open back up to f1.4 in order to take a look over into the image corners. The image is slightly soft there, but we can still just about see what's going on. At f2 the image is a little brighter but otherwise just the same. At f2.8 we see a bit more sharpness though, and at f4 that sharpness is very good. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where just a touch of softness is emerging due to diffraction. Overall, the lens is a good enough performer for its price here. It's not the sharpest thing I've ever seen at f1.4, but it's certainly a fair bit sharper than the even lower budget 50mm lenses that are out there, and its colour fringing isn't too bad either. Okay, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting now. Without corrections, the lens suffers from strong pincushion distortion, as you can see. Vignetting is also very high at f1.4. Stop down to f2 or f2.8 for those corners to brighten up. Next, close-up image quality, and the lens can focus down to a rather average 60cm here. At f1.4, close-up image quality is very ghostly, with strong colour fringing, unfortunately. Stop down to f2 for only a little more contrast. At f2.8, contrast is finally good and colour fringing is gone, but it's only really at f4 that we get critical sharpness again. Let's see about the lens's work against bright lights then. As you can see, the lens suffers from lots of flaring and a big loss in contrast when faced with bright lights, unfortunately. Stop down to f2.8 to see a big improvement, but still better use the supplied hood when shooting in critical situations. Let's take a look for coma and sun stars now. At f1.4, any kind of coma smearing is very low. Stop down to f2 to see whatever was there, gone. When it comes to sun stars, they are already emerging at the relatively bright aperture of f2.8. At f4 and f5.6 they get very distinct. At f8, f11 and f16 they become the biggest sun stars I've ever seen in my life. So if you're someone who really loves sun stars, then this is definitely the lens for you. Next, bokeh. The lens can give you very deeply out of focus backgrounds here. They look just averagely soft here with some colour fringing. And finally, on that very subject, let's take a look for longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f1.4 it's very high, it's still there up to f2.8 and even f4, it's only really at f5.6 that it begins to go away. Alright then, overall, the Yongnuo 56mm f1.4 Pro has its flaws, but it's still a lot sharper than shooting with an old double gauze 50mm design. Its build quality and autofocus are very good, and it can quite easily get you some pretty striking images, not to mention giant sun stars. Considering the thing's low price, I can still recommend it. Thanks for watching, and if you regularly catch these reviews and want to support the channel, then check out my Patreon page down below, where supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content and early access to reviews. Ciao for now, everybody.